Thank you and good afternoon. For those of you who may not know me, and you are the fortunate ones, I'm Kurt Witcher. I'm the Director of Special Collections for the Allen County Public Library and manager of the Genealogy Center. If you've never been to a digital ribbon cutting, that's what we're going to do here this afternoon. We have a really exciting announcement to make about a really neat product that we're going to be able to offer to patrons of the library and patrons of the Genealogy Center. So I'd like to introduce my genealogy services manager, Allison Singleton, who will kind of be our MC for the day. I think we have a lot of exciting things to tell you about, all about this one new resource. We know that family history is all about story, right? Finding our stories and finding the context for those stories. And I think this new database that we're offering today through our partners will really be a terrific thing. So Allison, I'll turn it over to you.
Hello. Hello. I'm so happy to see all of you here. Years ago, I attended a Roots Tech conference. And at Roots Tech, if you've never been, they have this wonderful exhibit hall where there are a lot of different vendors and they are exhibiting their wares for genealogists. And I had the opportunity to meet these guys from Vintage Ariel. And I picked up a postcard and I thought, hey, this is a really cool product. This is interesting, unique, different. And I want to look into it further. And I did. We did. And we started a conversation. And that conversation has grown into this partnership, into having the very first library edition of Vintage Ariel. And we are so incredibly proud to be that first library. This is an amazing resource. We are delighted to be able to offer this to anybody who comes in to do research. It's an amazing product, and we are happy to be working with Fritz Byers, Kevin Marsh, and Lance Roper, who are here today and will be presenting what Vintage Ariel Library Edition looks like. But just to give you a little bit of understanding of why I looked at this and looked at the product and why I saw this as a good fit, it fits with genealogy because it helps to tell our story. Genealogy, family history is more than just the dates and the names and the places. We're looking for the stories of our ancestors, of our family members. They didn't just live in a vacuum. They were impacted by all of the different events that happened around them, by the communities that they lived in, and by the world surrounding them. And being able to look at these pictures of the past gives you that visual representation of your ancestors. And many of these buildings have been torn down since many of these photos were taken. And being able to see them, that physical representation of where your ancestors were, is precious. And now it's another tool that you as genealogists, family historians can use to research your families. And we are so delighted to invite up here to do the ribbon cutting, as it may be, Fritz Byers, if you would like to come up. We are happy to have the team that created this product here. Now I'm going to go ahead and move this forward very quickly. And while you're up here, we're going to actually see a ribbon cutting. Of course. So it is live, friends. It is live. So I'm going to stop my share. There we go. And I'm going to let you take over.
Hello, everyone, and Allison and Kurt, thank you so much. I'm Fritz Byers. I'm the CEO and president of Vintage Ariel. And it's neither an exaggeration nor a sentimentality to say that this partnership, which is our first in the world, is the consummation of 15 years of work that we have done in vintage aerial. And we couldn't be prouder, to use Allison's word, to have the Genealogy Center and the Allen County Public Library as our partner. We look forward to deepening our relationship. Allison said we met at Roots Tech. It was about almost 5 years ago, and we've been having an ongoing conversation since then. And it was through our collaborative discussions that we developed the special library edition. So this is literally the first day that we will be announcing this. This is the first relationship of this kind. As we spend this afternoon with you, we'll give you a demonstration of what the library edition does, what its special features are, and how it can be deployed by all of you as a tool in your research, into your family's stories, into your region's stories. I say this is a consummation of what we set out to do, because when we started this company in 2009, a group of us based in Toledo got together really almost by happenstance. I have a background in oral history. We have backgrounds in technology, in image duplication, and in customer service. But we were all united around the idea that there is nothing more powerful in a person's life than their sense of their own story, however narrowly or broadly that's defined. And we also believe that at the center of storytelling are images of origin, family development, and the history that families develop over time. As many of you may know, the aerial photography industry or business began as sort of a Wild West venture in the 1950s, involving individuals who piloted single-engine planes, flew them at low altitude, and took oblique photographs of rural homesteads, and then sent out across the country salesmen trying to hawk these images. Would you like a nice photo of this beautiful home you have to put on your wall? And it was a vibrant industry for decades. But social and demographical changes in our country sort of eroded the financial viability of that business. But crucially, those changes did not take away the meaning of the photographs. So our goal was to first preserve these photographs, scan them to make them accessible digitally, and preserve them for exactly the purposes we're here today to share with you. To display them, to make them available to people who are interested for whatever reason: historical research, genealogical research, property research, whatever research or historical interest you have. Our goal was to display these photographs in a way that would make them useful for you. And that's what we are doing today. We are launching with this ribbon cutting, a library edition that is specifically tailored to your needs, to create a highly utilizable site to present these photographs to you. This is really, truly a dream of ours. And we're happy to be doing this. We began at the start thinking that organizations of this kind, genealogical societies, historical societies, were exactly our natural partners. And we learned from our conversations with Kurt and Allison that our values and our missions and our vision of what this could become were perfectly aligned, which again is why we're so happy to be here with you today. We believe a couple things about our photographs, and they seem to us to be parallel to what libraries represent. When you look at this genealogical library and this amazing collection, Allison said there are more than 1.2 million individual items in the collection. At the macro level, it has enormous significance as a resource. But each of us also knows that when you are in a library, what really draws you is an individual experience, an individual book you might encounter. The first time I came to the library, which was several years ago, Kurt and I were walking down the hallway, and by complete happenstance, we ended up alongside the Iowa row. And I said, my gosh, I wonder if they have a yearbook from the University of Iowa in the 1940s. And I walked down there and they had one, and I opened it and I found a picture of my mother in her sorority from 1941, a picture I had never seen before. It was one of the most impactful moments I've ever had in family research. And what we know when people encounter our photographs is they have that experience on a daily basis. We've hundreds, if not thousands of times heard back from our visitors, that's a photograph I didn't know existed. That's where my grandmother met my grandfather. Any personal memory of that kind. As Kurt said, it all comes down to stories. And we believe the photographs that our site will make available through the library edition are tremendously generative, and they involve a new way for each of you to supplement your research, to understand more about your family's histories, and to deepen your sense that, as the great historian C. Van Woodward said, history is something that happened to you in your part of the world. That's what we believe. So we're so happy to be here. Kurt and Allison, thank you for your hospitality in making this possible. We're ever so happy to be here with you. We're going to have now Lance and Kevin. First, Lance will come up and tell you a little bit more about our collection, and then we'll have a demonstration. Then we're here to answer as many questions as possible. And after the formal session, we love talking about our company. We'll stick around as long as any of you want to talk. So thank you for joining us today on what is truly a momentous event for our company, and we hope for all of you. Thank you so much.
So I'm Lance. At Genealogical, I'm the Director of Customer Experience. Get the slideshow going here. I've been with Genealogical since it started, about 15 years, which is crazy to think. I've done everything from scanning film, moving collections, talking to historical societies, license agreements, you name it, really. And it's such a pleasure to work with people who have become dear friends. And I'm going to be talking to you a little bit about, the collection, just so that you can get an idea of what it really looks like. So this is one of the planes that would have been taking these aerial photographs. As you can see, it's a small, probably a Cessna from the 60s. And in this plane, you have one pilot, who was also the photographer, changing out rolls of film, marking on a map. They were daredevils. And with this exact model of photography, this initial collection that we started with has 16 million images. Doing this, can you imagine? Here's just one aisle of our vault of film. There are thousands and thousands of cardboard boxes filled with 35mm rolls of film. And each box is, each library, each collection of photos sort of has its own catalog system that, the owners of the particular aerial photography company made up. They weren't necessarily thinking long into the future. But as Fritz mentioned, all these photos are unique because of how they were taken by plane, but also like the purpose of the photo was to sell something to a customer. There was a demand to see your land, your farm, your homestead from the air. And the door-to-door salespeople created a lot of demand also. And that's why these are all here. I don't think that anyone necessarily had the foresight that they would be saving millions and millions of historic photos. But here's the inside of a box of film. Each box has about 120 rolls of film in it. So somewhere around 4,000 images per box. And so all of the photos that we have in our collection, we've picked these rolls out, opened them up, and scanned them one at a time. And over the last 15 years, that's been the main operation of Genealogical, is digitizing hundreds of thousands of rolls of film. So all of the photos were taken in a county. We use the term speculative aerial photography, and what we mean by that is business conditions would would create some demand, or someone would make a decision at this company to say, let's go ahead and photograph Allen County, Indiana, and then we'll hire a sales team and we'll go knock on doors and see what kind of interest we can drum up. And so these maps would be generated also in the air. So as you can imagine, if you can, flying a plane and drawing on a map and changing out film and taking pictures, every time a pilot would change out a roll of film, they would mark on the map where that film was, so that the door-to-door salespeople could find the houses that were in their photos that they had with them. And so here's kind of a close-up view of these old county road maps. You can see the rudimentary drawings, the poor handwriting, etc. So what we've done at Vintage Aerial is we've taken all of this film, all of these old county maps, and we've digitized them. But just as important as the photos themselves are really these maps, because without them, we wouldn't know where the photos were. So I just want to talk a little bit about how do we generate search results at Vintage Aerial. All of these old paper maps we've also digitized, and we've stretched these paper maps over digital mapping services like Google Maps, to name one. And when we stretch them over these digital mapping services, we try to align all the streets and everything as best as we can. And then the next thing that we have to do is trace all of these flight paths. And so we've done that so that when you type in an address on our website, there will be a pin that gets dropped. And if it's near one of our digitized flight paths, we will then show you that roll of film that has about 36 images. And so out of those 36 images, you'll have to visually identify the place that you're looking for. But that kind of raises one of the challenges of our collection, is that we don't have necessarily an exact location for every image in our collection. And as time passes, it's getting harder and harder to recognize these historic places. Similar to, we often use the example of like a Civil War photo. You might see a picture of someone, but if there's no record attached to that picture, we'll never know who it is. And that's becoming true for some of our photos. And so it is, when we have a map like this, it's amazing, and we can find where these places were. But in some cases, we don't have county maps. We might have a box of film, you know, tens of thousands of images, and we're not really sure where in a particular county these were taken. So we can kind of look for landmarks, but we really are kind of trying to raise awareness about the collections so that people who are from these areas can go through and look at photos and try to identify things before that information is lost. So here is a just kind of a coverage map of our current collection. Back in the early 1950s, the main company that contributes to the majority of our collection started in Northwest Ohio, which is where we're from. And it really spread out from there. So anywhere in the Midwest where there's a rural homestead or property, we might have a picture of. There's a very good chance that we've got a picture of anything in this area. And then also down south and out to the west a little bit as well. So you can see the magnitude of our coverage. And I guess now what I want to do is invite Kevin up and just really show you exactly how you can use it, because, you know, seeing all the rolls of film and seeing the magnitude of the collection is one thing, but I want to show you, and I think we all want to show you how easy it is and how satisfying and gratifying it is to use the website and just see everything that you can do with it. So I'll go ahead and invite Kevin up.
Hello, everyone.
Hello there.
As Lance and Fritz both mentioned, we've been really, I think, what the Vintage Aerial Library Edition represents is kind of a widening of the audience of these particular photos. So when the photos were originally taken, they were really meant for the place that they were taken. These door-to-door salesmen, they would be given 4x6 printouts of all the photos that were taken. They'd have to go knock on the door and say, okay, would you like, this is your house a couple of weeks ago, would you like to buy this? Obviously, that isn't necessarily so interesting on its own, but the reason that these photos are in black and white isn't necessarily a technical reason. I mean, there was color film in the 70s and 80s, but these companies sold their best-selling product was a hand-painted version of that photo. So it's part of the sales process. They'd show you black and white and say, oh, what color was the barn? What color was the roof? And they would get you involved in the process of going through the photos and actually like telling you about them so they could get you to buy something, right? But so when we found out about this, we said, oh, well, we want to share this with a bigger audience. So we created vintageaerial.com, started scanning all those, started creating an archive. So vintageaerial.com is a website you can go to at home. There's nothing, we don't have any paid memberships. There's no advertising. But we do, the reason that we've been able to sustain ourselves for the past 15 years is through selling, we don't sell paintings anymore, but we sell frames, prints that you hang on your wall. Has been like, show of hands, have you ever seen an aerial photo on a farmstead? Yeah, they're everywhere, right? So I think that the benefit of kind of the what makes this all work is the fact that as these photos were taken and they would move on to the next county, they would keep the film. So we were able to take advantage of that, and we want to try to share them with as many people as possible. So it's sort of, from door to door to, it was in a vault for a while and no one saw them, to being able to scan them, and now they're in like a library, which is where important content should end up, right? So I'll just give you a few quick highlights of how the site works. So when you do get a chance to take a look at it, it kind of looks a little more familiar to you. So this is our homepage. It's vintageaerial.com. We have some extra special stuff here at the top just to kind of guide people that are coming to the library for the first time, just kind of giving you some ideas of what you can do with it. And then as you get down here, this is sort of our main entry point where you can search the collection. So the easiest way to search if you have a current address of a place is just to enter the address. So for example, this happens to be my home address. So as you start typing the address, just like you're pretty used to on Google and all that, it'll autocomplete some things here. The top one's usually the most correct, and we'll show photos that are in that area. So as Lance mentioned, we've been, at the same time as we're scanning photos, we're also scanning maps, and the maps help connect the photos to the location where they are. So in this case, there happens to be a lot of photos that are of that exact place. They're not all this way, as Lance alluded to. So if you scroll down, you'll see here's all of those rolls of film that are within an area. So, and they're grouped by year. So in this case, there's 3 rolls of film from 1966, one from the 70s, one from 74, one through 77, one through 88. Like there's, and then as you get down to later on, they actually started shooting color. So some of those later photos will be in color. So you can kind of get the idea there. So just to kind of show you the map piece a little bit, if you don't know the current address, which if you grew up in a place and it was a rural route or something that didn't actually correspond to a location, but you could find that photo on a map, easiest way to do that is to start with the county. So in this case, we'll just do Wood County. In every county that we have photos for, it has what we call a county landing page. So there's a map here. You can type in an address to move to a place, but really you just kind of zoom in until you find the place you're looking for. And as you get closer, you'll see that there's this sort of crosshair that shows up and it says show nearby photos. So what that's doing is it's saying, yes, we have photos in that area. And if you want to see kind of where the coverage is, we have this coverage overlay that's sort of like, as you zoom out, it's sort of like a cell phone tower coverage, right? It shows you all the areas that we have photos for. And as you can see, there's quite a bit. And these are all the counties that Lance mentioned. But the one thing to mention here that you can kind of see as we go into like Toledo and Fort Wayne is they avoided the city centers. This was really just a rural thing that they were, because they were trying to sell door to door, because they had that particular niche, they were really focused on that particular demographic. So, and the other thing to mention is there's kind of this cutoff here. I don't know if that's quite the Mississippi. I think it's a little west of the Mississippi, but there is some spotty coverage in a couple places. But it turns out that there are farms in Wyoming. It just turns out that they're a little too spread out for that door-to-door model to work. So that salesman would have to get in and drive 5 miles down the road, and it just didn't make economic sense, so they never really expanded that direction. There were smaller companies that did, like there was just one from South Dakota that we acquired 2 years ago, and we'll be, that's in our queue to scan and add to the collection. We scan about 23,000 photos every week. We put those online as soon as we kind of finish an area. So we're constantly adding and changing things. If you go to our blog here, you can kind of see October, we just opened a bunch in Arkansas, some in Maryland, like it's sort of all over. So to get to a photo, again, let's do that address again. So these are the results. Like if these photos that show up at the top here have all been pinned by someone, so that's the exact location. So in this case, you're really lucky because you found it right away. In the case where there's just rolls of film, you can click on a roll and it'll show the 36 photos that are on that roll, as well as the approximate location of where that flight flew. So you can see this is one of those digital flight path maps that went all the way from a pilot tracing it as he was trying to not crash the plane to actually someone tracing it and it becoming digitized. And you can see like the pilot actually did a pretty good job. So the blue ones here are the ones that we've pinned to say that that's actually the correct location. And the approximate flight path map does sort of line up with where they actually are. So good job there. But so if you click on a photo, so there'll be this. So this is a roll of film. So there's about 36 pictures roughly, and they should sort of follow this kind of general path. If you click on a photo, you will see it. And I think this is kind of the biggest difference from when you would visit vintageaerial.com at home versus when you do it at the library. The internet is a wild place. So when we put our photos online, we put a watermark on them to protect copyrights and all that sort of stuff. At the library, we're all friends. We know who we all are. So we can show you a bigger photo with more resolution, less of a watermark, so you can really have I think a better experience. The other cool thing that is sort of exclusive to doing this at the library is what we're calling the loop tool. So if you can imagine a little magnifying glass that you would look at a roll of film, we've kind of done the same thing. So if you click on a part of a photo, it'll take a second, but it will go back to the original film negative and pull 100% version of that is. So it's sort of like integrated into a little magnifier, and you can just look around the photo and find. Sometimes you can pick out, oh, look at that cool car, or if there's a sign or a name on a building, you can say, oh, that was the Marsh farm or whatever. Sometimes you'll see people waving at the plane, which is pretty crazy. And it's just as simple as just clicking on it and just looking around. The other thing you can do at the library that you can't do at home is print these photos. So if you click on the print button here, I won't do it here, but I'll show you what it looks like. It just prints out a nice little record page that you can keep with all of your stuff. We don't charge anything for that. But it also has all the metadata associated with the photo that you may want to keep with it. So citation information and the photo IDs and all that sort of stuff that if you're really, as you know, as a genealogist and somebody who cares about protecting sourcing and all that sort of stuff, you can have all that with the photos. So another cool feature is, I mean, obviously finding a photo from 1966 of a place is pretty remarkable, but because all of these photos are geocoded and we can sort of like stack layers on top of each other, you can also see how a particular area has changed over time. So an example like this is, so this is 1966, and you can see here's other views of the same property, but in different parts of time, right? So this one is 11 years later of that same spot. You can see how things have changed. Or you can go back, 29 years later, and you can see that it's very different. Going through photos is pretty easy. You can just click on, back and forth. You can also use the arrow keys just to move back and forth, because usually you're going to need to look through like a roll or two to kind of see a particular area that we have. Another cool thing that you can do is if you are collecting sort of photos of a particular area, you can add them to an album. We have albums on our site, so you can say, here's my grandfather's places that were important to him, and that allows you to put extra notes and that sort of stuff, so you can keep track of that research there. Also, if you're a blogger or you have a place where you can, if you're sharing this on Facebook or that, we also have a way that you can grab a code that you can then drop in your blog or your CMS or whatever, and that way you can share the photo back to us too. So those are really that's the heart of our collection. There, as we've said before, there's about 19 million photos in 42 states. Those are all online. Those are all very, very similar. The other part of our collection that we are rapidly adding to is, in contrast to oblique, which is low altitude from an angle, we're also starting to integrate high altitude aerial photos into our collection as well. So if you go to a county page here, I showed you the coverage thing earlier, which kind of shows here's all the low altitude, really high detailed photos we have. But then if you click imagery, you can see this is like a boring Google map, like Google Earth. Everyone's seen it, right? But if you zoom in, you can see we have modern photos, but then you can also go back to like 1969 or 1957, and it's, as you would imagine, looking at it from the ground, but it's back in time. So you can kind of go peel back through the layers here and see how areas have changed from a wider perspective. So you have the low altitude, really close up view, but then you can also see bigger land changes and how things have moved in time as well. And there's quite a bit of those. We also have a lot of people are interested in just modern stuff as well. So you can do, it's like every year, almost every decade going back, and then every year. So that's kind of a cool tool as well. It also helps us identify photos that we are gone. So if you are on a photo page here, you can see we have a very similar map here. This particular place happens to be there, but a lot of times if you're looking at a photo of a barn from 1965, you will not be able to find it on Google Maps because it's a Walmart parking lot now or something. So this historic high altitude imagery helps you kind of connect those two things as well. The other thing that's kind of cool, not all of our photos have text keywords associated with them because they're photos, but a lot of them do. So because we've been a website for close to 15 years now, every day hundreds of people are typing in, this is the so-and-so farm, this is a cemetery, this is, so you can also search by keyword. And these are kind of just some interesting searches that we found over time. Want to see all the water towers, for example, you can search for water tower. And we've broken those down by both decade and state and county. Some people are really interested in churches, which the majority of our photos are of residential locations, but we also have some churches and cemeteries as well. So there's 30,000 photos of churches. So type church, and then if you're interested in churches in Illinois, for example, you can click Illinois. That'll just bring it down to churches in Illinois, but then you can also dig down to the county level as well. You can also see some cemeteries there as well, which are usually by real churches. And the last thing I think that I will show is everyone familiar with PLSS, Public Land Survey System? I don't know the full details of it, but a long time ago, people were figuring out, how do we break up this land? We have all this land, we need to sell it off into parcels, how do we break it up? So they defined basically a survey system based on township ranges and sections. And a lot of the country is gridded out into those particular coordinates. So this is an example of a book from a plat map. We don't have any plat maps on Vintage Area, but there are tons of them out there and available online. So in your family research, if you happen to come across an area where you don't necessarily know the address, but you found like your relative's name on a particular plot of land, we have a way to, so for example, this one is Township 32N, Range 13 East. So if you go to PLSS here, pick your state. So 32, and some of this is like foreign to me, but and then click go. That will show you, it'll just zoom into that map to that particular section, and you can see there's 36 sections in a township.
This one that we found here happens to be, this is section 13. So if we go to 13 here, this will show all the rules of film that are in section 13. So a lot of historians are familiar with that sort of section township range thing. So we built this to help you get to those quicker. You can also go through, there's also like a little mini section map here. So if you want to kind of explore that area, you can do that as well. Right.
Before we start the questions, thanks to Kevin. So the three of us are almost all of Nigeria, and a couple other people have been working with us for 15 years. So I found myself wondering whether any of you were thinking, so why have you been doing this for 15 years? And as I said at the start of my remarks, it's literally true that the reason that we've been doing this for 15 years is so that we could get to the point where we are at today and engage with people like you and provide you access to these resources so you can connect to your family, your friends, your stories. So it's tremendously meaningful for us to have the opportunity to do this. Allison mentioned having met us at Roots Tech, and I was just remembering that at that Roots Tech meeting, there was the area where all the vendors were, and it was really notable to us that almost all, other than the DNA kits, almost all of the vendors there were selling software that could be used to gather personal stories. But what they didn't have was the catalyst for the story itself. It's software that can organize and maybe allow word searches of stories, but they didn't have anything to pull the story out of the individual or to pull the individual into the storytelling. And that was really an important moment for us when we realized we have something that is unique. And of course, the maxim of the picture is worth 1,000 words. Our experience had already shown to us how powerfully generative photographs can be. And we also knew that it was unique, as both Allison and Kevin had said. If you go back to the period immediately after World War II, there were 6 million rural homesteads in the United States. 50 years later, there were only 2 million. We will never again be able to take oblique aerial photographs of a farmstead that isn't there anymore. So we were pretty confident that we were onto something when we had the instinct to develop this company and connect with people like yourselves. You saw on one of the screens that Kevin showed, there is, leave us a story, leave us a comment. We mean that. We want to engage with you. We want to have you share your stories, not because we're going to pick up with them, but because we want to be one of the places in the world where folks gather, where they congregate, where they create essentially a digital town square where people reminisce. There's almost nothing more powerful to people than to either tell their story or to receive somebody else's story. That's why we're doing it, and we're again so happy that we have this opportunity to begin this with the people here at the Genealogy Center. So thank you, and as Kevin said, we're happy to answer any questions you have.
Yes.
No, you didn't do cities. Did you do any small towns at these aerial photography? Some small towns?
Some small towns, yeah.
Yes. There's a lot. It really has to, there was, sometimes it's frustrating because this wasn't a governmental survey thing where they had to view every single parcel, or it was just, hey, I don't think that place, that's not worth going to. We didn't sell anything there last month, so move on. So some of it can be a little spotty, but we also have the benefit of just so many years. So as they're crisscrossing, sometimes they're missing in 1 year, but they come back later and they get it. So it varies a lot, but as you saw from the coverage map, like if you're in that sort of, Indiana, Ohio, like that's really, there's a lot of coverage. Maybe not in downtown Indianapolis, but certainly some of the smaller towns would have made it as well. You have a question?
Yes, I have a series I'd like to have you answer, and then I'll go to the next level.
Okay.
You said that this was
a library edition that we can come to the library. Does that mean we physically have to come here to the Genealogy Center, or can we see it by going to the genealogy site and look at it?
So the, like the magnifier tool and some of the other stuff we mentioned is only available, I think anywhere in the library, but specifically up here for sure. But our website, vintagejournal.com, you can go to search content there. You know, you'll see watermarks and that sort of thing, but you'll have all the same access to those shirts. And I think had similar.
Just as a follow-up, it is available at any of the Allen County Public Library branches.
Okay.
So if it's Allen County Public Library, it is available.
And then the follow-up is, once I come to one of the libraries, must I use a computer that's here at the library, or can we go on our laptop that we brought in?
It will work on Wi-Fi if you're connected to the Allen County Library. It'll work on your own device.
Okay, next question on that. Now that we're on my laptop,
We're doing this right. I like it.
you're speaking to the genealogy workshop, so I'm trying to make sure that it blends into the way we do our research here. Once we are on our laptop or on the other, you said that we could print it off. Is there a way to save it to our laptop?
Yes, you can right click it and save the photo as well.
Now that we've got it on our computer, we've got things like that, let's go back then, how can we help you? Okay, I go on and I find the area where I grew up. And I know all the names of the people on that whole row. Could you show us how we drop a pin?
Sure.
How we can identify who lived there at whatever time?
I'm really glad you asked that.
Thought you would.
So we do, to pin a photo, you'll have to create an account, which is free, but that just helps us.
And how do you do that?
So if you go to sign up right here, just give us your a username, an email, and a password, and you're good to go. And once you're signed into an account and you find a photo, like you can just leave a comment, say this is the Smith farm or whatever. But you can also, so this is the map where we think it is. So you can just kind of zoom in and say like, no way, you're crazy, it's not there. So this is where we sort of think it is, but if you have a different opinion or you actually can see it because we have like imagery and you can actually tell, just drag it to where it is and click save pin and you're good. And then, you know, the more people that do that, the smarter everything becomes, because now when you search for that address, that photo will show up. The other thing we do, which I think is really more for fun than anything else, is anytime you leave a comment, I think it's 4 points, and anytime you leave a pin, you get 5 points, and we add it to your count. So you can see that there's, we have like a leaderboard of how many, like some of our top users. So these people have been with us for many, many years. Many of them are retired. They really love a particular area. Some of them actually, like we have a user who works for the Macon County auditor, and they use this as part of their process. So he gets paid to sit and pick where photos are. So, and if you go to an area, like if you were to go to Indiana, let's do, so this is kind of everything we have in that state. So you can see the latest comments, and these are the most viewed photos in Indiana, and you can see the top users. So there's certain users that obviously they grew up in an area, but there's kind of like a leaderboard for every state. And then if you go to a county, there's also leaderboards for counties as well. So this particular person, you know, they geotagged 449 photos. If you click on that, you can see all the photos that they've pinned, which is kind of cool. You can kind of zoom in and see all the stuff that they've done. You can see all their comments, and obviously this is really important to us, especially for those areas where we don't have maps. And we just know these 20,000 photos are in Allen County. Help us figure it out. So this is valuable to us. So we can't necessarily pay people to do that. But as you can redeem those points for products. So if you pin a bunch of photos and you want an 8x12 print a photo, or like a digital file, you can redeem those points for products. It's just kind of the way. I hope that person who has 339,000 points doesn't suddenly want 300 photos. But if he does, we will give them to him because he's provided us a lot of value over the years. So I think Lance is mentioning every county, if you go to if you click on Kings County there, in the upper right, we have a county index. So if you just want to see, like, I know you guys are, your researchers use, like, just show me everything. This particular county, I don't think has a lot of photos, but if you click on that index, you'll see, here's all the 48 rolls of film. And by the way, we don't know where any of them are, so. If you know this area, or if you're looking for a challenge, you can just go through those rolls of film and help us out that way.
Why are some of the numbers grayed out?
That's a good question. Those film, that film is a lot. So we, you know, as we pick up the box and we say, okay, let's scan them all, but 37, 38 aren't there, so we can't do it. So we put it in there just for completeness, but we don't have those, unfortunately. And sometimes it's frustrating because, hey, you were close on 7 and you were really close on 9, or where's 8? And sorry, it's 7. But some, like that county didn't have any maps, but if you click on a county that has a lot of photos, like Allen County, there's also links to the maps as well. So for 1965, you can click on this, and this is that original flight path map that we showed you. We don't really show this to everyone because it's a little overwhelming and it's kind of hard to read. So that's why we digitized them and tried to make it. But if you want to go in and like look at, I want to see the map and I want to look at it, that's in that index. You can see all the maps and then kind of do the backwards work to figure out which role that would correspond.
Did that exhaust your list?
Oh, I'm gonna let somebody else do it. I gotta try to get the technologies in there.
Yes.
How did these films happen to be preserved rather than being discarded?
Good question. It's luck. I mean, a lot of companies, they would do this, and when they sold through the counties, they pitched them about we're going to do all this film. We were very fortunate that I think the biggest single company that was doing this was called State Area Park Statistics. They were in our backyard. They had just one employee who was just like, hey, maybe we should keep hanging on to this stuff. Like, I'll keep a little list and and they did have like spiral bound notebooks of where all the stuff was, and they kept pretty good records of it all. It wasn't digital, but that's what we took. We were really fortunate to be able to bring all that into the digital world and then scan that film as well.
I think the other reason is, I'm sorry.
No, you go ahead.
I think the other reason that they decided to start saving film is because they found that some people wanted to order more prints later on, or there was a problem with particular print, like they would have no means of reproducing it. So they decided that they were going to start saving film, and they just kept doing it for 50 years.
That's a good point. Like another part of our collection, we haven't even begun to scan yet, is people who would call in because the pilot was really instructed to get one good shot of, film is expensive. It's not like get one good shot of every place. So they would do that, and then they would go to the door, try to sell them the person, and say, "Yeah, it was really my head just worked trimmed. Like I would." So they would send a pilot. Okay, go back down the county. We have 3 people, and they would go back and do like multiple angles. There's not as many of those, but there's probably about 1 million more in our collection than we just had. We deprioritized scanning those because we already have that coverage. But yeah, people just wanted different angles of them, so they would go back and shoot them again.
A little further on that point, you've heard us mention a couple of numbers. We have over 19 million photographs online now. We have a total of about 22.5 million photos that we've acquired. And as Kevin said, we're continuing to scan and we will make them available as we go. And we also are aware of some other collections. We're going to try to continue to engage. So one thing, in the spirit of what you said, sir, one thing you could help us with is if any of you ever come across aerial photography collection of any size or any location, let us know, because we want to find that out. And our promise to you in return, I need to say this earlier, as you get accustomed to our site and you use it, tell us what we can do better. Tell us what additional features would make this site more useful to you. That's what we thrive on, is being useful. And we learned a lot over our discussions with Kurt and Allison, and they helped us shape some of the features of the library edition. So we really need it. We're very responsive our IT department is that guy right there. So it's not gonna go into a queue, we're not gonna have to triage the work. If it'll help you, Kevin, you get it done. So that's the trend. We're gonna keep making our collection as rich and available to you as possible, and we count on your feedback for that. Yes, sir.
Do you have either business cards or a handout with your email addresses for the three of you that we could have?
You bet.
We do, there's some cards in the back as well.
You bet. Thank you. Yes, sir.
Okay, I'm from Southern Indiana and I've seen some pictures taken back in the forties. The flyovers there, and they did a lot of the city of Bloomington, the IU campus and things like that. Is that a part of this, or is that another collection that you might need to know about? And my second part of that then is, how do these pictures relate to those that are available on Google Pro, where you can go back to the same farm over the?
You're talking about like the high altitude stuff, right? Like the,
Not 1940.
okay.
It was just line it flew over.
So I know IU has some stuff that they've seen. That's not ours, that wouldn't be on here. Some of the high altitude stuff, a lot of it's from like the Farm Service Administration. There's the National Agricultural Imagery Program. There's the USGS. So there's government agencies that have taken that high altitude stuff. We just scanned it, stretched it, and put it online. But the low altitude oblique stuff is not, that's the non-government stuff. That's the stuff that we've bought over time as door-to-door companies have gone out of business. I think that's an important point. These photos don't exist anywhere else. We took them from film, we own the film, and they're ours. So
We're sharing them with you guys.
Yeah.
Yes.
So did these companies go bankrupt or something and you bought their assets or how?
A lot of them did. I mean, there are still some that are still in business, but I think this was well before the pandemic. I think just the economics of people, I mean, half of those farms are gone, and then the other half, people don't answer the door to people anymore, like stay off my whatever. So they just couldn't sustain themselves. So
We did not buy any assets out of a bankruptcy proceeding, but we have come across businesses that just stopped operating. Some of them discarded their photographs, but we've been contacted by a couple of people who found out we existed and said, hey, we have, like South Dakota, we have 900,000 photographs, are you interested? And we've gotten to know these people, and we present ourselves sort of the way we're trying to present now, which is we're really interested in preserving your work. We're interested in preserving the photographs and what you documented. And that resonates with most of the people we meet. So we've developed, I think, very cooperative relationships with these companies.
yeah, a lot of the South Dakota one, it was a small, 3-person company. The guy had been doing it for 50 years. He couldn't make a living anymore, wanted to retire, and said, I don't want to throw these things away. I want to do something with them. And I think you get to some legacy stuff, and we always on our photos we always show like which collection they're a part of. So this particular one is State Area Farm Statistics. So if you did aerial photos all your life, or you have a small collection and like you want to make sure that they're not lost to time, they're kind of preserved, and this is kind of a way that we're helping to do that. Go ahead.
I don't have a question, but a couple of comments. One is that enabling users to search by township and range is going to make my life a hell of a lot easier. The other thing I noticed when you have the national coverage map up, and is it looked like their coverage included some of Big Bend National Park, and I'm not sure why that would be, but that's very interesting. And I know for some of the national parks, a lot of the CCC structures that were built in the 30s are gone now. But if the photography was from the 50s, it's going to have probably most of those in it. And I'm kind of excited to explore that little aspect.
Yeah. And your comment about Big Bend really is interesting. I have to confess, I've been to Big Bend, but I've never looked at our photographs of Big Bend. And I think you're exactly right.
I think another thing I want to point out, just as you all think about what might be in the collection, the pilots who are also the photographers were independent contractors and were given some instruction, but they took some creative liberties from time to time too. There are surprises in the collection. Not everyone followed exactly, like take a picture of a farm, get any other farms. I mean, there are pictures of downtowns. There are.
Look here, will you marry me? Like, so that changed someone's life. It's literally changed someone's life. If she said yes, I don't know if she said yeah.
She said no, actually.
Yeah, we look at these photos all day, so we, as we come across random weird ones, we try to find them, but there's it's an interesting, and I think the black and white nature of it just makes it, I don't know, there's something evocative about a black and white photo. It's just, I mean, I look at them all day, but I still think that they're amazing.
I say all that to say that, the why one photo was taken but another one wasn't taken, there's a lot of chance and a lot of, on the fly, no pun intended, decision making from the pilot as they were taking the pictures. Sometimes we'll see, if you're looking for a particular farm, the photographer didn't take that particular picture, but then next door neighbor's farm is in the role. So we are learning every day what we have and what we don't have, but there are a lot of surprises, and a lot of things just don't make any logical sense. So. Soft ice cream, not hard ice cream. Soft.
There's a lot of details in this picture. A little windmill. Cool.
Happy to answer any questions.
Yes, with the photos, can a person order from you, like an 8x10 of, an actual photo and pay you? Is that
Yes.
way? Okay, because I have several family members that would like to have a picture of their farm, back in the 50s when their grandpa owned it or something.
Yeah, if you're, we don't allow any purchases through the library edition. But if you go back to your home computer or even on your phone and find that photo by the photo ID number, you can see we have canvas wraps and digital files and like all that stuff there.
The other thing I'd like to point out too is if you become an active user on our site, the points that you earn from leaving comments or pinning locations have somewhat of a dollar value.
Mhm.
So if you amass enough points, you can just get free stuff.
And just one further thing, just to be a bit more cheerleader on this point. Our photographs are extremely high quality, and the prints that we produce are truly beautiful. They're legacy photographs. They're truly beautiful. And we also have because of Lance's leadership, a very high standard for customer satisfaction. So we're not here to pitch a commercial product to you, obviously, you know that, but they are beautiful photographs and they're very meaningful. And we believe you'd have a very good experience if you were to go onto the site and use our shopping process.
Yes.
In the future, like I know my grandparents had one, my aunt and uncle have one. Like, would there be a way to take their pictures and send them to you somehow? Like I know they have framed.
Depending on where it is, it might already be in here. If you turn a lot of those photos, if you turn around, they'll have a little label that has like a photo code, and it'll say like the name of the company. And a lot of times, if it's state aerial, it'll have a code that's very similar to that. And actually, there's a way to search on the homepage. You can search by photo code. So if it's like 1ABC2, if you type that in, it'll probably show that photo. So there's a good chance we already have it.
Okay.
Probably. That's a good question. We've had people reach out and say, like, do you want this one? And we just haven't done it just because we haven't, but there's no reason we couldn't. Just to add it, because I think one of the cool things that adding more collections does, just is you have a place that kind of represents where that is, and then you have layers of time. So the more things you stack on that particular place, the more clear picture you'll have of that overall area's history. So I think we welcome additional stuff on it.
Yes, ma'am.
I've done film photography for a long time, or used to do it, but I am amazed that this film didn't deteriorate. How was it saved? I mean, must have been in some kind of storage that the quality, the humidity, the things that destroy film.
It varies. I don't know that, because I think this wasn't a government thing, these things, I don't know that they were, and as I go to the library, I'm like amazed at the like attention to detail. If you go into some of the parts where stuff is like really secure, these companies weren't like that. It was like in the basement. So I think it's partially just a testament to the longevity of Silver Allied film. But I think reasonable care was taken, and obviously once we get it, we take extremely good care of it and we scan it so that it's preserved.
They were not stored in climate control areas. When we first got into this, we were very concerned. It wasn't fireproof or anything. It was so to some degree luck, plus the quality of the film back then.
One flood would have destroyed a basement flood.
Absolutely.
And it's funny because I think it's partially the era that I'm in the industry, like just everybody smoked, like in the companies in the 50s and 60s. And you'll even see like on some of the scenes, I haven't seen it in film, but if you look at like scans of maps that they were like holding, and you'll see like little cigarette burns and maps. But I think the vast majority of the photos are great. There are a small percentage of them that, for whatever reason, they're out of focus. They were at the wrong angle. They have some like termite damage potentially. But it is incredible that as we go through. I mean, I haven't looked at all 19 million photos, but just if you take a random sampling, the vast majority of them are amazing. It's really unbelievable that, especially in our day and age, where you take 12 digital pictures and pick a good one. Like you have 36 chances on this roll, and they really did. They really had incredible skill to be able to make a great photo that tells a great story in each one of those frames.
And we did make a decision around the scan at a very high level of resolution. So as I said earlier, our high resolution photos are beautiful. Yes, ma'am.
What are, like, you have pictures from the 50s, 40s, how far back do you have?
From the 50s into the 90s.
The earliest we have online now is 1963. Some of the high altitude stuff goes back to the 30s, but all the low altitude stuff is 60s to 2000.
And it varies completely by state and county. You'll have some counties within a state that have film going back to the early 1960s, and then the next county over, we might not have film till 1985. And that goes back to my previous point about just sort of the irrational, non-logical patterns that the collection follows. Yeah, like this county in Michigan, there's 11 rolls of film, but some other counties there'll be 300. So it's kind of hit or miss.
This may be a haywire thought, but is there any link between the photograph and a census? Connecting the photograph to a census?
Yes and no. I mean, you'd have to have a map. I mean, the census. I forget how small. I guess when we dug into this, when the recent census came out, we thought, oh, we have census maps. We can connect them. And it turns out, the more rural the area, the bigger the census tabulation area. I think there's a term that I don't know what it's kind of a track maybe. So downtown New York, there's like there's 20 people in this particular track, but in all of this rural county, there's only one track for the whole county. It's just like, oh, that's not very helpful because you can't pin it down to that particular person. So not really, unfortunately.
Yeah, they go by street though.
But some of the rural areas they would it would sort of, at least the fifties one, they would, you know, if it's downtown, it's like, yeah, here's 1, 2, 3, but then the rural area, we see here's all these people. These are all great questions.
Sounds great.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so you had a ribbon cutting. What? And this is the first place or the only place or what?
This is the only place, this is the first place that we've developed a library edition for. We customized it for Allen County. We do hope to do this with other libraries because we will engage with people like yourselves wherever they are.
So will those be more than one in state, or will they be by area, region, or have you thought that far ahead?
There will be, I mean, ideally, we would have more than one in the state, but we're gonna sort of do everything we can to connect with as many libraries and historical societies as possible and find out what they want from us, because this branch of our business, unlike our online commercial activity, really is designed to maximize the utility, to maximize patrons' ability to get access. So I don't know, I'm just thinking aloud, I don't know that we would ever say, well, this will be the exclusive library edition for your state, but it'll certainly be the exclusive library edition for Allen County. But there might be another one in Indiana. We don't have any current discussion going on with anyone in Indiana, though. Yes, ma'am.
So, like, I'm from Ohio,
Where are you from?
originally from Paulding County, but I live in Defiance County now.
Oh, okay.
I'm part of both genealogy societies there.
Uh-huh.
If they would be interested and get with their libraries,
Yes.
like the libraries could contact you, or the genealogy societies, or
Anyone who's interested in talking with us about developing a special edition, yes. We love talking with genealogical societies. Often they're connected with libraries, but not necessarily. We're interested in historical societies, which again, sometimes they meet in libraries or they use their library resources. But really any organization that is interested in giving their members access in a non-commercial setting, one that's more tied toward research, would be very interested in that. So we would love to talk with you and your colleagues in any of the genealogical societies you're part of. And our contact information is back on that.
And we're from Ohio too.
Yes.
So we can, at our homes, pull up this website
Yes.
and access. We don't have to be.
You can pull up our website, share.com. It will look like this. Kevin will probably show you.
So if you were at home right now, you would have, it's similar, you'll notice it, but you know, we're talking about our sale, and if you go to a photo, there'll be more of a watermark. This is where I said if you want to like buy a print, buy a digital file, this is how you would do that. But and like the magnifier tool, that doesn't exist. So yeah, it's same content, but a very
Same search functionality.
Yeah.
I've actually found my grandparents' farm,
Wonderful. Where is it?
Wayne County, Ohio.
Oh, in Wayne County. I see. Is the farmhouse still there now?
Yeah,
What year is the photograph you're looking at?
I haven't found the actual photograph. I'm on the road. I haven't found the actual photograph.
You're on the road. You certainly are.
I'm on Southwest Lebanon Road, just outside of Dalton, Ohio.
It's fun to search because you never really know who's been to the site. Kevin was talking about how you can search by keyword and also name. So my mother's maiden name is Ziegler. And is that your mother?
No. I'll have to do some more research on that.
And so depending on which Ziegler, family you're from, this is my grandparents' farm from 1968. And George and Rosemary Ziegler, they had 4 kids. And, this house is still in the family today. This picture back here, this is the original house and it got moved from somewhere between these trees over here. And just, you know, when you look at it, when you look at a picture like this, there's just so many stories and memories that flow back, which is why these pictures are so special. The individual connection that you have with something like this is just really unlike so many other resources that you can find. And that's what I'm really excited about, is just talking to people who have that experience with one of these photos. It's just things that you thought, memories that might have been gone, have a way of flowing back, which is a really powerful experience.
Where's that at?
This is in Wyandotte County, Ohio. So by Tiffin.
I'll start researching. I know we came from Maryland to Pennsylvania to Ohio to Indiana, so.
Hello, cousin.
Your cousin too.
Twice.
Okay, did you find any aerial views of the two covered bridges in Wyandotte County?
I haven't looked, but you know, if we type in covered bridges, I'm sure that
Is that a search term in your software?
Yeah, so you can search any word and it'll look fun.
let's see. We have 29 in Ohio. And nothing in Wyandotte quite yet, but
One cool thing we're working on, we haven't quite finished yet, but one of my big projects for 2025 is, I think it's about 500,000 of our photos have at least one comment that gives some sort of searchability to it. But obviously there's a lot more information that's kind of encoded in the photograph that you want to be able to search. So we're doing some not really cutting edge, but some relatively modern machine learning and artificial intelligence to be able to, we're kind of building a database that.
That's Harpersfield.
There you go.
All right.
So to be able to find photos by keyword that somebody hasn't already put a keyword in for, and we're doing that in conjunction with kind of building a kind of a taxonomy of barns and stuff, because there's lots of structures and architecture of barns. So we're building that and then applying some machine learning to it, so you can search for all the hip barns or all the
Ground barns.
Yeah.
that's a fun one.
That'll make our database a lot more searchable. So yeah.
The
building is still there.
We also
tree I can see here.
It is still there.
It's still there.
Did you find our photo?
No, I didn't find your folder. I'm looking at the imagery of it, but I found the farm.
Okay.
And the house that Dad built.
We also have some groups of people that are very interested in one particular subject. So we have I think they're called the barn sorters, and they have a website which is it's all mail pouch barns. So they found every mail pouch barn, they assign a number to it and have a whole taxonomy for where all these things are. So they find them on our site and tag them in the metals. There you go.
This is not an advertisement. We do not condone the.
How do you verify the information that is being submitted for a photo?
Great question.
Well, there's a lot of information that comes in, as you can imagine. So specifically for pinning locations, we have kind of 2 or 3 statuses. I guess the first status is the image is not pinned at all. It's just somewhere in a county. The second status would be that a visitor came and pinned it. And then the final status is that someone from our team verifies that location. As of now, locking in a pin and saying, yes, that is correct, is something that's done internally. We probably have some pins in the middle of the ocean somewhere. So
Which we're not verified here.
that's great. They're under.
Under the building.
That's cute that you pulled up the Harpersfield covered bridge in Ashtabula County, because they just this last year rebuilt it, restored it.
Oh, really?
Oh, that's nice. That's good.
But you can recognize that there's a span that is steel.
Yeah, there's a hybrid.
Because the original bridge was 2 spans,
Mhm.
and then 1913 flood, I believe, washed out the bank. So instead of building another wingspan now, at that point, steel was more prevalent. So it's a hybrid.
That's great that you recognize it right away. Very cool. Well, I think if there aren't any other questions, we just encourage everyone to get started, start using the site. And I think more than anything, and I'll give it back to Allison here in a second, but if you have feedback for how we can make this better, please get in touch with us. We are going to be improving this as we go. And today's day one.
Thank you all so much.
I just wanted to close out and say thank you. Thank you to ACGSI for being a supporter of this endeavor and this launch, this ribbon cutting. And thank you to Ariel. Thank you, gentlemen, for being here. And it has been amazing to partner with them and work on making this idea a reality. So thank you all for being here. Oh,
Just wanted to say that our next workshop is the next month on the 3rd Wednesday at 1:30, so invited to come back for that.
perfect. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Have a good rest of your day, and please feel free to come up and ask questions if you have any. Thanks.